Is the background too crowded? I can move the computer to.
No, it is fine.
No, it's fine, doctor. And Dr. Panchwani, this is Nagendra. I know that my colleague has put up the older version of the poster.
That's
We
okay.
did
Don't
update this poster with the correct names. Just I want to point
no
out.
problem.
I hope you don't mind. Sorry
Not
about
at
that.
all.
Thank you.
Chetan?
Yeah, just stopping the share so we can start the program. So, Facebook. So, are you able to see me, Tejas?
Yes, yeah, clearly.
Okay, so ಎಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ನಮಸ್ಕಾರ ಹಾಗೂ ಸ್ವಾಗತ. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to one more great program by Kannada Sangha Toronto. My name is Chetan Bharadwaj. I'm the just stopping the share so we can start the program. Just stopping the share so we can start the program. So are you able to see me?
YouTube is on.
Okay, so ಎಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ are you able to see me? Okay, so ಎಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ನಮಸ್ಕಾರ ಹಾಗೂ ಸ್ವಾಗತ. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to one more great program by Kannada Sangha Toronto. My name is Chetan Bharadwaj. I'm the just stopping the share so we can. So today we have with us Dr. Dilkush Panjwani talking to us about Conquer Your Mind, Conquer Your World. And we have Dr. Bisleen Atlee talking to us about mental empowerment. Before we start the program, KST would like to thank Canadian Red Cross and Canadian government for the financial support provided to host this event. If you have any questions as we go along in the program, please feel free to post them on our Facebook channel, Kannada Sangha Toronto Facebook channel. We'll be looking for all of your questions there, and we'll be able to post them to the doctors at the end of the program. And now, without further ado, I'd like to hand it over to Mala for the introduction of Dr. Dilkush Panjwani. Over to you, Mala.
Thank you, Chetan. It's an honor to be a part of this program. My name is Mala Nandisha. I'm a KST Executive Committee member. On behalf of KST, I would like to take this opportunity to introduce Dr. Dilkush Panjwani. Dr. Dilkush Panjwani is a qualified psychiatrist. He is an assistant professor at University of Toronto and consultant psychiatrist at Trillium Health Partners. Dr. Panjwani has vigorously promoted dignity for those suffering from mental health issues and advocated to end the social stigma of mental illness. He is appointed to the Order of Ontario in recognition of his outstanding achievements and contribution to society. Canada recognized Dr. Panjwani with the 2016 Prix the Excellence Specialist of the Year Award. He has consistently promoted interfaith and intercultural dialogue by facilitating effective partnerships between government, community organizations, and the media for better understanding of issues facing the community. He has taken every opportunity to impart mental health awareness and education through public and professional lectures on the negative impact of stigma of mental illness. Now I would request Dr. Panjwani to share his knowledge and experience.
Namaste. Good morning. First of all, I would like to thank the Kannada Sangha Toronto, all the executives, and Sadanandji. Malaji, thank you for your kind and generous introduction.
No problem.
I will try
Happy to
and do justice to your introduction.
No, thank you.
Shall we begin? I will start sharing the screen with your audience. Good morning, listeners. Are you able to see?
Yes.
All right. So the topic today is Conquer Your Mind, Conquer the World. I have used this painting of Michelangelo, This painting is in the Sistine Chapel in Vatican. I had the good fortune of visiting there. Now, this is called the creation of man. I will go to the next slide. So, if you see here, we notice that this outline in the painting is outline of the human brain. All right. This is the shape of the brain. This is the front. This is the back of the brain. This is a side view. And if you see, God's hand, Michelangelo has depicted in creating man. And there is a gap here between the fingers of God and the man. Now, this is just artist's representation. It doesn't include any ideology or any religion. What I'm trying to do is give a scientific explanation to the painting. So, God is telling man that through your frontal lobe, which is the seat of intelligence, the seat of cognition, the seat of conation, which means concentration, thinking, consciousness, and conation is willpower. So God is telling man that to complete this gap and come back to me, you have to use your intelligence to make the right choices, and you have to use your willpower to pursue these choices. So it's a very strong message Michelangelo depicted in this painting. In those days, it was blasphemous to say anything against religion. So artists and writers did it in a very subtle way. Now, we in India have seen that Sita ji in Ramayana, this is the first ever documented picture where Sita ji is sad because Ravan has kidnapped her, abducted her. So this is the first record of depression in the history of our world. And the first recorded, documented evidence of psychotherapy is where Lord Krishna in 18 chapters of Bhagavad Gita has imparted psychotherapeutic discourses to Arjuna, who had refused to fight and had some unresolved questions in his mind. So we see that this is again a first documented record of psychotherapy many thousand years ago. Now, to introduce the subject, this year, the year 2020, humanity is faced with an axis of multiple global crises. I wouldn't say axis of evil, but axis of multiple crises. We have the pandemic, COVID-19 pandemic, economic disaster globally, systemic racism in so many countries. Climate change is a global catastrophe in the making, and terrorism. So there are many other crises, but these are some of the main axes of crisis. So mental health crisis is no exception to the rule. A dramatic emotional or circumstantial upheaval in a person's life, which has been caused because of the pandemic, is predicted. What is predicted? An emotional or circumstantial upheaval, like losing a job, losing a house, feeling sad, feeling anxious, depressed, suicidal. So this dramatic change or upheaval causes serious mental disorders. So it is our collective responsibility as professionals, as community members, to nurture and invest in mental health, because there's no health without mental health. And we have to invest in mental health initiatives to improve the quality of life of people with mental illness. How can we do that? It's done through education, through equitable and accessible mental health care, better livelihoods, by creating infrastructures and developing effective public, private, and civil society partnership. Now, your association, Kannada Sangha, is one of the civil society institutions. The government is a public institution, and most of the businesses come under private institution. So we have to have a triangular partnership, which is very effective. Only then we can fulfill this responsibility. Let's see about the Declaration of Human Rights. I'm not going to go through the entire Charter of Human Rights, but it's very important to know that all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. Nobody is superior, nobody is above the law. They are endowed with reasons and conscience and should act towards one another in a spirit of brotherhood. So we belong to a global family, a cosmopolitan citizen, and in the charter, we have this Article 25 says that everyone has a right to his health and well-being of himself and his family. Hence, mental health is part of the health spectrum. So, what is mental health? Mental health is a state of well being. You feel good, in which the individual realizes his or her own potential. He can cope with the normal stresses of life, can work productively and fruitfully, and is able to make a contribution to her or his own community. Now, this is the WHO definition of mental health. What is mental illness or a mental disorder? A disease or disorder of the brain. So nowadays they call it brain disorder rather than mental disorder. So it's a disease or disorder of the brain. There are certain symptoms that are pervasive in nature, which means it interferes with most areas of your life. For example, there is disordered thinking, abnormal mood or feeling, abnormal behavior, abnormal perception, and physical symptoms like pain, headaches, tummy ache, shortness of breath, etc. So, mental health statistics in Canada. It is well known fact that mental illness indirectly affects all Canadians at some time through a family member, friend, or colleague. Mental illness affects people of all ages, education, income levels. Can we mute that? So, mental illness has no exceptions. The young and the old, the rich and the poor, the educated and the unlettered, high income, low income, everyone is affected. And suicide is one of the leading causes of death in both men and women from adolescence to middle age and old age. So, these are some of the statistical facts derived out of the statistics. Now, I'm talking about Canada. So chances of having a mental illness in your lifetime is 1 in 5. You throw a dice, 1 in 5, one could have a mental illness. I could have a mental illness. You could have a mental illness. So it's very important that we recognize that 1 in 5 is the number. Then chances of having mental illness or a substance use disorder, a comorbid disorder where there is mental disorder plus addiction, the chances in your lifetime is 1 in 3. Adolescents from the age of 15 to 24 may have a mental illness or substance abuse problem, and that is about 18% of the population. Suicide, very important. 4,000 people in any particular year die of suicide, which comes down to about 11 per day. So it's not a small number, it's a very significant number, and every lost life is an irreparable loss, a cost to the family, to community. And most of the suicidal deaths, 90%, have had a diagnosis of a mental disorder. And people who suffer from major depression, who do not receive care, is about 50%. So depression is one of the commonest illness or disorder. It tops the list of most disorders, physical disorders. So depression is the one which I will focus on today. I could go through the entire diagnostic classification and talk about all different illnesses, but then you have to be prepared to stay till midnight today, which I don't think anybody would. So I will stick to depression only. So what is the phrase mental health problems and illnesses? What are we talking about when we say this? It refers to clinically significant patterns of behavior or emotions that are associated with some level of distress, suffering, or impairment in one or more areas or all areas. And it also affects the ability to live independently. You need supervision, you need support, you need assistance. So, before we talk about mental illness, let's talk about the stigma of mental illness. What stigma is the social stigma of mental disorder has negatively impacted on the individual who suffers from a mental illness, as well as the family and the community and the nation and globally. So stigma means, the word comes from the Greek word, which means a mask, a mark or a brand. They used to have animals or slaves that could be identified by putting a stamp on them. So that term has been applied to when somebody appears to be different than us, we might view them or her in a negative, stereotyped manner. It's human nature but it's not condonable, that we look at somebody who's behaving differently and we label them. So society feels uncomfortable about mental illness. Although 1 in 5 in Canada live with a mental illness. So why does stigma surround mental illness? Just like there is stigma about AIDS, there is stigma about COVID nowadays, mental illness is also surrounded by stigma. It is because in the past, the media had always portrayed mental illness or a person with mental illness as aggressive, dangerous, unpredictable. There were films made like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, etc., etc. Recently, in the past few decades, there have been positive portrayal of mental illness in the media, in the films. For example, A Brilliant Mind was one of the films which was very positive. We must accept the fact that mental illness affects people of all ages, in all kinds of jobs and all education levels. So, what are the impact or effects of stigma? The person who is suffering from a mental disorder feels rejected, feels excluded from the family and friends. There's fear, there's loss of self esteem. The person has difficulty making friends, and very often they are very hesitant to ask for help, especially in some communities where if a young boy or girl has a mental disorder, the parents don't want anybody to know because he or she will lose a chance of finding a good matrimonial partner. So people don't seek treatment, and classifying people by their illness actually dehumanizes them. We never say that guy is a depressive patient or he's a schizophrenic or he's demented. We always must say that he's a person suffering from schizophrenia, a person suffering from depression, etc. So, how do we overcome stigma? First of all, know the facts. Be aware of your attitudes towards the other person who has mental illness. Choose your words very carefully. Words, when spoken, cannot be taken back, and it can have a serious impact. Educate others. Focus on the positives of the person rather than the negative aspects. Provide support. Be there to talk and to listen. More to listen than to talk. And do not define people by their mental health problems. So, I don't want you to go through this entire list, but I put it up. These are some of the most famous people in the past and the present who have suffered from mental illness. So, as you see, it's a long list and nobody has been spared. There are authors, politicians, sports people, etc., etc. So, let us pledge today to unmask mental illness, to conquer stigma, which, of course, in some ways helps us to conquer our mind. And let us give a human face to the mentally ill. Now, patient experience. Let me talk about patient experience. We talk about how does a patient feel when he comes to a doctor or a therapist. The experience is a sum of all interactions shaped by the organization's culture that influence patients' perceptions across the continuum of care. So, if you're kind to the patient, if you show empathy and compassion, then the patient actually benefits from it. And these virtues actually become part of the culture of a hospital or a community or any institution that provides mental health care. So now let's talk about stress. In the past few weeks, there has been a lot of stress that has superimposed on the stress of COVID and economy, and that is the election stress. Thank God it's done now. I hope so. So let's talk about stress. What is stress? There's a simple formula. A change happens, and the change leads to a stress of the mind, and that stress can precipitate a disorder. So in China, stress has two meanings, both opportunity and danger. So you can take it in a positive light, good stress. So stress is a physical or psychological stimulus that can produce mental tension or physiological reactions like increase in blood pressure, difficulty breathing, palpitations, etc., sweating. So all these physiological reactions are caused by mental tension, which is caused by a physical or psychological stimulus. An external influence, which is a stressor, which may be actual or may be perceived, produces an adverse health threatening response in the body. So when does stress happen and why does it happen? When a situation is not acceptable to us. For example, we have tried to now accept a change of lifestyle, a new normal because of the pandemic. If we are not able to accept that, then we get stressed out. When we want to do or get something, but we are not unable to do, and that involves going out to restaurants, eating with friends, meeting, hugging people. When our ego is hurt, when we lose someone or something which we feel is very important in our life, and stress is mostly due to fear, due to worries, and due to the situation at the present moment, but more about worrying. So it's always due to the perception of the mind. So we have to conquer our mind by conquering how we perceive the reality. So different people feel different levels of stress. Stress and anxiety or coronavirus pandemic has caused. Why is there so much of increase in stress? First of all, there have been sudden and rapid changes in everyone's lifestyle. There's a spectrum of symptoms that the COVID-19 presents with, from shortness of breath to loss of taste and loss of smell to fever to cough, a variety of symptoms, abdominal symptoms, diarrhea. We are also faced by stress because of social isolation. There's a high level of unemployment. The future appears to be uncertain. We perceive the future as uncertain. There is no proven treatment. There is no vaccine yet available. And there is shortage of household and food items. And there is an overload of news and social media. 70% or so of social media may be fake, not factual. There are lots of conspiracy theories in the social media. So one has to, there's an information overload, out of which the knowledge has to be extracted. What is knowledgeable and what is not? And once you extract the knowledge, then wisdom sets in. So it's information, knowledge, and wisdom. So what happens when we are stressed out? We can have anxiety, fear, depression. We can feel suicidal. We can feel angry. And what is the physiological aspect of stress? Increased acidity, ulcers, heart problems, blood pressure, kidney problems, diabetes can be precipitated by stress, skin conditions, breathlessness, asthma, etc. I'll skip that because this explains how stress affects us. First of all, we mobilize enough energy from our body, and then the energy source gets exhausted, and then it starts depleting energy from other sources, and chronic stress can lead to many medical conditions. So some of the signs of stress, as we said, could be physical or psychological. Who is vulnerable to stress? Now, we are going to talk about resiliency. Bislin will be elaborating on resiliency. But who are the vulnerable people? People who abuse drugs like cocaine and marijuana and many other street drugs, illegal drugs. When somebody who is not able to channelize his anger properly, there's lack of community integration. This chronic dysthymia or anxiety is present all the time, even before the stresses came. There is a lot of physical illnesses which are chronic and not controlled. There's dysfunctional relationships. And if a person is not able to perform to his optimum level and is inadequate, so again, stress affects us in many ways. Sleep is affected, mood is affected, and we also develop physical symptoms. So here are some of the top stressors. Sele had devised a scale where divorce, death in the family, illness, getting married, unemployment, retirement, new baby, change of financial status, career change, and moving from one city to another. So these are all arbitrary factors. They are given a score of from 100 down to count downwards. This may be about 70, 80. Now, what are the ways of dealing with stress? I have put it down as A to Z. Acceptance of the fact, biofeedback, counseling, deep breathing, exercise, family meeting, financial planning, godliness, spirituality, humor, imagery, joy, kindness, journaling your worries on a paper. You put your worries down on the paper, it becomes less stressful. Kindness, love, meditation, music, massage, proper nutrition, organizing your life, solving your problem, prayers, have some quiet time in your life during the day or night, relaxation tapes, religion, smile, religiosity, I should say, where there is support, spiritual support, smile, stretching exercises, time management, vacation, which we cannot have now, it will be staycation rather than vacation, staying at home and enjoying the vacation. Volunteering is very important. Walking, yoga, Zen. So A to Z, I've just listed all this. This could be available in, if you go on Google and read a published article by me, just have to Google two words, Panjwani and Dickens. Just these two words will bring you to two of my published articles which talk about all this in detail. So the determinants, social determinants of mental health, these are biological factors, then individual lifestyle, social, community, general socioeconomic status, etc. So what are the social determinants of mental health? Enhancing control. If we give more control to the individual to run his life, increasing resilience, we give the person with mental illness more tools to increase his resilience. Even physical resilience is important by taking vitamins and doing exercise and taking proper nutrition. Increasing community assets, facilitating some participation in activities, and promoting inclusion. Everyone is included in the family. So, what is resiliency? Resilience is the process of adapting well in the face of adversity, trauma, tragedy, threats, or any other social significant sources of stress. So, in other words, resiliency is the capacity to bounce back. Some people will just shrug their shoulders, tear their hair, and give up. No, you have to have the capacity to bounce back, and that's resilience. And Bisleen will elaborate on that. So, coping with stress and building resilience. In simple terms, establish a daily routine, eat nutritious, healthy food, enough sleep, sleep properly, at least 8 hours, and the waking time should be fixed. No matter what, how late you go to sleep, you have to wake up at the same time. Exercise, music, avoid excessive television and social media, diaphragmatic breathing, pranayam, alom vilom, yoga asanas, mindfulness meditation, prayer and a spiritual mindset, humor, laughter, relieve stress, stay connected socially with family and friends, volunteer to help the vulnerable and the needy, and never give up hope and faith. So these during these times of the pandemic and all other stressors, we can have a normal or near normal lifestyle if we practice all this. We can build our resilience and cope with stress. So I will skip some of the slides for the sake of time. Let's talk about mental disorders. See, this is the paintings from Picasso. Pablo Picasso painted in three different views. So this is a front view of the face with two eyes and is also a side view. So the reason I put this slide is because we look at mental illness or a mental disorder from a biopsychosociospiritual aspect. Now, biological means genetic, hormonal, physical illness, neurological, chemical. All these come under biological. Psychological is loss, any type of loss, stress, conflict, or negative thinking. Social causes are poverty, unemployment, homelessness, lack of family support, and spiritual alienation from religious groups or lack of faith or being excluded because of your religious backgrounds. So, all these biopsychosocial spiritual factors are responsible for causing a mental disorder, for all the signs and symptoms of mental illness can be physical, psychological, social. And treatment also and prevention also involves biopsychosocial spiritual approach. So it has to be a multi-level or approaching any disorder, whether it's causation or the presentation or the prevention and protection, we approach this. Now, depression, what is depression? If you feel very low, your mood is down, and you have almost no interest in your life every day, and this feeling continues for at least 2 weeks, and if you have other problems like big changes in your weight or appetite, not being able to sleep enough or sleeping too much, feeling that you're always restless or slowed down, thinking that you're worthless or guilty, feeling tired or most of the time low energy, feeling numb or empty inside. My brain feels empty, my body feels empty, having a lot of trouble concentrating or making decisions, planning, organizing, multitasking, Those are all executive functions. And thinking about death or suicide. So if you have these two main symptoms, one or the other or both, for at least 2 weeks, and a few of these, then it's quite likely that you have a depressive disorder. If you have a bad day and you're feeling sad for a day or two, it's not depression. It's just a symptom. It becomes a disorder when these symptoms persist and affect most areas of your life. So, what are the warning signs? As I said before, all these physical and emotional symptoms happen. Even memory problems can happen. So, in youth, depression can be caused because of loss of relationship, conflict, loneliness, and poor school performance. So these are some of the symptoms of depression in a youth. The situations, and physiological symptoms, emotional symptoms, thinking becomes negative, and actions, poor self-care, withdrawal, locks up in the basement and doesn't do much, just plays video games, etc. So depression and anxiety disorders, there's a lot of overlap of symptoms. So this is big circle is depression, and then there is anxiety, generalized anxiety, obsessive compulsive disorders, panic disorders, social anxiety disorder, and post traumatic stress disorder. These all are anxiety disorders, and there is an overlap between a depression and anxiety. So you see the symptoms overlap. Depression is a treatable illness. Just like any other illness, it can be treated. It is not a weakness of character, or it is not a punishment. It is just an illness, and you have to seek treatment through your family physician, through the community agencies that are present. And the treatment involves antidepressants, talk therapy or psychotherapy, combined medication and psychotherapy, and different other types of psychotherapies. So, since this is a time limited talk, I'm not going to go through each and every point here. The cost of depression is enormous. In US, is $43 billion just for depression. So this is just a summary of depression. Suicide is a very important subject which should be, a concern for each and every individual in the community, in the country, in the government, because suicide is an unnecessary loss of life. And depression, suicide is most common in depression. If you see, it's 75% of depression people are at risk of suicide or have at least some suicidal thoughts. The rest are less. So these are risk factors where we can assess whether the person is at risk of suicide. He has suicidal thoughts, feels hopeless, helpless, previous attempts of self-harm, chronic medical illnesses, alienation from everyone. The family rejects him, the doctor rejects him, the community rejects him. That's malignant alienation. And substance or alcohol abuse poses a higher risk for suicide. All age groups in the population, the commonest age group is between 45 to 54, 75 to 84. So it's in the young adults and the elderly. It also is in different age groups. including the youth and children. So people use firearms, poisoning, hanging, suffocation, or cut themselves, cut their wrist. So, but the commonest cause is firearms. That's why there's a whole lobby to ban firearms in the country. Poison is another thing. Overdose of medication can be considered as poison. If you take Tylenol, overdose can kill you. So overdose with any of the medication or substances can cause this. So suicide risk factors, I'm not going to go into details, but there are life stressors, different problems in life. There's mental disorders. There could be other problems and suicidal event. There's a partnership problem. There's a family member who had committed suicide in the past. Many factors. So you can read this up on any website. And if there's a history of suicide and if the person has left a suicidal note, then the risk factor is higher. Now, I've just put this slide because Vincent van Gogh, who died as a pauper, who was one of a great artists. Today, his paintings are sold in millions of dollars. He suffered from a multiple mental illnesses. He was diagnosed with bipolar disorder, alcoholism, malnutrition because he was not eating much out of poverty and drinking too much. He had two withdrawal deliriums when he went into alcohol withdrawal. Then in later life, he went into severe depression, and finally he committed suicide, or he died out of self-harm. So you see, Vincent van Gogh, an artist who was not recognized, or his talent was not recognized when he was alive. It's an irony of life. People are valued more when they die than when they're alive. There's an economic burden of suicide. The cost of mental illness and addiction in Canada is $192 billion. Just alcohol abuse alone cost the country $38 billion. Unemployment in people with severe mental illness is 70 to 90%. They don't work because of the illness. Overall health spending allocated to mental health in Canada is only 7.2% compared to a slightly higher percentage in Australia and United Kingdom. There is evidence that there is a growing cost to society of mental illness is not sustainable. We just cannot the government cannot continue to put in money year after year unless we have a public-private civil society partnership. Then alone it will be sustainable. So what is the solution to all this? Instead of waiting till a person has a mental disorder and then treating them and it becomes chronic, the best solution is to promote mental health, which you as an institution are doing, and prevent mental illness. We have talked about how to prevent stress, and if you prevent stress, you will prevent mental illness. So promotion is through education, and prevention is through education and providing various tools to do that. So in Canada, help is available when you need to talk. And if you're not feeling yourself, you're experiencing a crisis, you're having emotional pain, suicidal thoughts, or when you know that someone who needs help, help is available. You're not alone. This Wellness Together Canada is a big investment the government of Canada, Prime Minister has done. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau announced an investment of $240 million to develop, expand, and launch a virtual care and mental health tools to support the Canadians. So, Wellness Together Canada is an online portal dedicated to mental wellness and substance use support. So, it provides you with support and enough information. It is the first and the only mental health platform of its kind for people of all ages in every province and territory. It connects Canadians to peer support workers, social workers, psychologists, and other professionals. It enables confidential chat with the person on the phone, and it makes it easier to find credible information, reliable information, and to help address mental health and substance use issues. So go to this site, Wellness Together Canada. It's worth looking into it. There are other useful resources. There are various websites where you can connect. CMHA, Canadian Mental Health Association, is one of them. And there are Mood Disorder Society, Schizophrenia Society. So a simple way of finding out is to dial on your phone 211. Just dial 211 and they will provide you all the information that is accessible to you in the nearby area. So there are books which I have suggested. So to end, I will say that these words come to my mind. This is a letter written by the late Jack Layton. My friends, love is better than anger. Hope is better than fear. Optimism is better than despair. So let us be loving, hopeful, and optimistic, and we'll change the world. All the best, Jack Layton. So we should also recognize all the frontline healthcare workers who have contributed and during this time of COVID crisis assisted us. So finally, there is hope at the end of the tunnel. There is light at the end of the tunnel. We are not in the dark forever. So the right to hope is the most powerful human motivation I know. This is a quote from His Highness the Aga Khan. And finally, a winner is a dreamer who never gives up. Nelson Mandela. So thank you all. I'm sorry if I took more time. Thank you and stay blessed, healthy, and safe. God bless you.
Thank you very much, Doctor.
Thank you, Dr. Panjwani. It's very nice to know from you, some of the things that I really enjoyed is the first ever document that when Sita is in stress, when Ravana took her and kept her in his palace. And the first ever therapy is when Lord Krishna gave us Bhagavad Gita. That is very nice to know these things. And hopefully this PM investment of 240 million will go towards this mission to improve mental health is really nice to know. And my last and which is not least is the 211 number that you gave us. It's really nice to have these numbers noted in our list of the important numbers to call. It's really good to know. And thank you so much, Dr. Panjwani, again. It's really very nice to see your lecture. And before we introduce our next guest speaker, I would like to say Buddha quote, "To keep the body in good health is a duty. Otherwise, we shall not be able to keep our mind strong and clear." We are happy to introduce our next guest speaker, Bisleen Atlee. Bisleen is a fourth-year naturopathic medical student who is passionate about mental health. She has founded her own mental health campaign called All About ME, which is mental empowerment. Bisleen has worked with a number of different schools and organizations to break the stigma against mental health and promote resiliency. She created a workshop to present the 4-step process on how to be resilient, the basics of mental health, and resources for extra support. Her mission is to create a world where more young people are resilient and able to unlock their potential to achieve greatness. Without any further delay, I would pass this on to Bisleen. And thank you, Bisleen.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for having me here. I'm really excited to be here today. So I'm going to start off just by sharing my screen. Share. Okay, sorry, just give me one moment. Oh, can you see my PowerPoint?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Give me one moment. Sorry. Okay. Yeah, so as was already mentioned, I am in my 4th year studying naturopathic medicine. And about 2 years ago, I started my own mental health campaign. I am extremely passionate about mental health, and more specifically, really passionate about empowering people and educating them as to how they can work towards getting to the best version of themselves. And today's workshop is really going to focus, and my talk today is going to focus really on resiliency. And I'm going to be teaching you my 4-step process on how to be resilient, which you can really apply during this tough time that we have right now with the COVID pandemic. And really the reason why I'm so passionate about the topic of mental health kind of goes back to my story and my journey with mental health. I was actually diagnosed with depression when I was a teenager. And I suffered with chronic depression for about 3 years before I really realized, I just can't live like this anymore. And that was in university, where I was just like, I'm done with this. I can't live like this anymore. I have so many goals and dreams that I want to achieve, but my mental health and state of mind is just not where I want it to be to help myself get there. And when I came to that conclusion that, I want this new change of life for myself, I started reaching out to different doctors and counselors. I tried different therapy groups. I did hours and hours of research to really figure out what type of work I should be doing on myself so that I can get to that place of having great mental health. And I tried so many different things. I failed so many times. But as I continued to persist through and go through my obstacles and go through whatever challenge came my way, eventually things just kind of started to fit into place. And all those little steps that I worked on every single day, amounted to this big, massive change where I could finally get to a place and say that, I do have good mental health now. And so when I really look back at my journey, I can essentially boil it down to these 4 steps that I implemented in my life. And I've spruced up the steps a little bit with some research and some input from other doctors and other people like that. And what I really want to share are practical ways that you guys can start applying these steps in your life. And the 4 steps essentially focus on this word resiliency and how we can really build that in our lives, because I truly believe that resilient beings can overcome any sort of adversity that comes their way. So let's get kind of started with the steps. So the 4-step process can essentially be boiled down to this little sentence right here, okay? And the sentence is, help yourself be positively persistent. So if you ever forget any parts of the workshop or kind of where to start with, always go back to this phrase of help yourself be positively persistent. Okay, so let's get started with the first step. So the first step is reaching out for help. I think it's probably one of the most important things that you can do for yourself. And, taking this even beyond your mental health. Okay, so if you feel like your mental health is not a concern right now, and with COVID, maybe job is an issue, or maybe relationships are an issue, see how you can start getting help in each one of those areas, right? Maybe with regards to if you've lost a job, maybe it's looking like reaching out to people who are being successful during this time and asking them for help. Or if you feel like your relationships are suffering as a result of this, maybe it's reaching out to other people and, seeing what you can do to foster better relationships during this time. And then when it comes down to your mental health, it's reaching out to the right resources, right? Whether it be connecting to your family doctor, whether it be talking to counselors, whether it be just simply reaching out to your friends and family and loved ones to express that, you know, you're not feeling okay. And I really just want to emphasize the most important point of the fact that asking for help equals strength, okay? I have been in that place of, you know, denying the need for help because I was like, I'm tough, I can do this by myself, I don't need anyone's help. And I really wish that my ego wasn't so high with this and I reached out for help sooner, because I could have probably saved myself years of pain if I had done that. And I don't want any of you guys to be in that place, okay? So you can lower your suffering if you just choose to accept how you're feeling and how you currently are and reach out for that help. The other thing I also just kind of want to break the stigma down a little bit is on therapy, because there's a lot of misunderstanding as to what therapy is and who as a patient kind of qualifies for therapy. Therapists and counselors are essentially people who have gone through years of schooling to help provide you with coping mechanisms to help you get through tough situations. Okay, so you don't even have to be diagnosed with a mental illness, but if you feel like, you know, your emotions and thoughts and feelings are just too much to cope by yourself right now, then a therapist might be the right person to see. Okay, they'll give you those coping mechanisms so that you can just better learn to manage these emotions that you have. Okay, and really the biggest reason why it's so important to reach out for help is because mental illnesses and poor mental health is so easy to hide. I wish I could say that, you know, mental illnesses are as easy to see as a broken arm or some of these other physical illnesses, but they're not. I hid my depression for a long time before I was like, you know, I really need to get that help now. Okay, so don't be in that spot. There's people out there who want to help. There's people who care, but you must be willing to be the one to reach out for that help, right? So that's essentially, again, step number one is to get help. And it's going to look very different for each one of you. So it's all about reflecting, taking a step back and seeing which area in your life needs improvement and how are you going to get the appropriate help for yourself that way, right? And I'm also going to be sharing a PDF file of specific resources you guys can access for more support. So I know that will be sent your way as well. All right, so let's get into step number 2. This is a big step, and this is the yourself part and the help yourself be positively persistent. And by yourself, I am essentially referring to you taking care of yourself, okay? This is probably by far the most important step in all 4 of these steps. And when I'm talking about taking care of yourself, I'm essentially referring to this pyramid here. I'm in clinic right now and I'm working with patients. And whenever we start by taking care of their health and looking at what areas of health need work, I always go back to this pyramid here. And with this pyramid here, again, it's all about looking at the current life you have right now and seeing what more can be done to optimize your diet, exercise, sleep, and mental health so that you can be functioning at your best state. Right? And why am I even talking about diet, exercise, and sleep when this is like a resiliency and mental health workshop? The reason is that your physical and your mental health go hand in hand, okay? You can't be feeling good mentally and then not be feeling so good physically. Overall, you're still not gonna feel good. And the same way it goes if you're feeling good physically, but not mentally, overall, you're still not gonna be feeling good. So you have to work on them together and they go hand in hand. So I'm going to kind of go through this pyramid with you guys right now and kind of give you one little tip as to how you can start optimizing these areas in your life. Starting off with diet, right? Diet is the foundation of life. So this goes out to those of you who feel like, you know, you feel tired all the time, your mood doesn't feel so good, you have low concentration, you don't really have energy. Look at what you're feeding yourself, okay? And I always just like to give that example of, you know, for example, if you had a Bentley, it's a really nice car, right? And that really nice car, premium car, is going to need premium fuel to run. A Bentley is not going to run on the same fuel as a Toyota. Not that there's anything wrong with a Toyota, but they're just not going to run on the same fuel. And that's the same thing that goes with your body, right? If you want your body to function at its best state, like a premium car, you're going to have to give it that premium fuel. And when I'm talking about premium fuel, I'm essentially just referring to vegetables. Vegetables are the best things that you can give your body. So the more vegetables that you can get in your diet, the better off you will be. And I always like to teach my patients, you know, Whenever you create a meal, first thing that goes on your plate are vegetables, and then everything follows afterwards. Okay. And it's all about, again, looking at, we eat in a different cultural way and things like that. So really trying to get creative to see how you can kind of increase your vegetable intake and make your diet a little bit better, but still also eat kind of how you want to eat. Okay. The next step of this pyramid is exercise. Now, there's a big whole myth about exercise and people saying, you need to get like a gym membership, you need to work out hard for an hour and a half every single day. And that's not true at all. Okay. At this point, all I'm saying is just get some sort of movement. Your body needs movement. Our bodies are not meant to be sitting down on a sofa for hours or in front of a computer screen or lying down for hours. Okay. Our bodies are not built for that. Our bodies are designed to move, and you need to get some movement in. So whether that means going on even just a 10-15-minute walk every day, maybe you're doing a little bit of yoga, maybe you are pulling up like a YouTube workout video and doing that. However that looks like for you, you have to figure that out yourself, but you need to get some movement in. It's so important for your health, okay? Like, I encourage you after this workshop, like, take a moment, put away your screens and go on a walk and enjoy this weather, okay? You'll immediately start to feel better. Now, the third part of this pyramid is sleep. And I think sleep tends to be like that number one thing that people just sacrifice and throw away when it really shouldn't be. We all know the importance of a good night's sleep, and you've probably seen the difference within yourself and how you act on days when you have good sleep and when you don't. So what's one thing starting today that you can do to improve your sleep? I like to kind of go and talk about sleep hygiene, which essentially refers to your sleeping habits and the environment that you kind of sleep in, okay? So what's one way that you can optimize that starting today? Avoid technology. Okay, I always tell my patients, if you want to have the worst sleep ever, be on your phone and be on technology before going to bed, and I'll promise you'll have the worst sleep of your life. Okay, you should not be on phone or technology or anything like that 30 minutes to an hour before going to bed. It's super hyper stimulating for your mind, and it doesn't give our body that chance to really get into that state of rest. Like, sleep is technically not supposed to be an issue for our bodies, right? Like, for centuries and centuries, and ever since humans have roamed this earth, we've been able to sleep. Animals are easily able to put themselves to sleep. But what happens is that we live in this state of constant stress and our minds are always on, and we just don't give our bodies a chance to just shut off, rest, and relax and really get into that state of good sleep. Okay, so don't be on technology before going to bed. Do anything else you want. Read, journal, drink a tea, do some stretches, whatever it is, but just avoid technology as much as possible, right? So try it tonight. And I'm such a big believer in this. I always tell people in my workshops and my patients, like, if it doesn't work for you, I will personally give you $100, because that's how much of a strong believer I am in this working, okay? And the last step of this pyramid is taking care of your mental health. So what's one thing that you can do to radically shift your mental health starting today is by focusing on gratitude. Gratitude is this powerful exercise of just being thankful, right? It's being thankful in no matter what adversity you're in or what situation you're in, but choosing, again, it's that mindset shift and choosing to focus on things that you have to be grateful for, right? So for example, with COVID, we're 7 to 8 months into this. Are you still thinking about, wow, this is awful, I lost my job, or wow, now I'm at home all the time and I'm losing some of my relationships, or wow, I'm missing out on so many experiences? Or are you choosing to focus on the good stuff? Like, I have more time now to take care of my health. I have more time now to foster deeper relationships with my family. I have more time now to start these projects I've told myself I'm going to start for like the past 10 years now, right? It's all about choosing what you focus on. And you can choose to focus on gratitude if you want to. And what happens is that once you start focusing on gratitude and abundance, the more of that you start to attract in your life. But the more that you continue to focus on scarcity and how awful of a situation this is, then you'll continue to attract that. So I challenge you today to start practicing gratitude and to start actively choosing to see the great things that you have in your life more than the bad things, right? So as I said, this is a bit of a big step, but I gave you a little tip in each one of these areas in this pyramid as to what you can start doing today to change things. Okay, so it's up to you. Figure out what it is, what part of this pyramid that you need to work on, and start that work. Okay. You deserve to feel good, but you need to be willing to put the work to get there. And all of us have that potential to get there, to be feeling good, both in our mental health and in our physical health, but work is going to be required to get there. And sometimes you might have to go back to that step one and reach out for help to other people, right? So now let's go on to the third step, which is a really important part of being resilient, and that is the being positive part. How I see positivity as essentially your perspective in life and your self-talk. And all it is it's just a habit. Okay, so if you're someone who's not very positive right now and it doesn't come naturally to you, that's okay. It's something that you can develop. I was not born a positive person. I was actually very negative for most of my life until when I decided one day, like, I can't take this anymore. And I literally had to reconstruct the way I think so that I could start focusing more on positivity. And I'm still not perfect with it, but I'm still trying. Okay, so how do you actually develop positivity in your life? Step number one is to start with self-awareness. Okay, you have to get quiet with yourself. You have to get quiet with yourself. You have to self-reflect, and you have to really get deep into those things that you're saying to yourself, right? Like, are you telling yourself you're a failure, you're worthless, no one loves you? Or are you actually telling yourself nice and kind things? And if you get to that place of, when you do that reflection and you get to that place of being like, wow, I'm actually so mean to myself, then simply ask yourself, what is it that you want to start telling yourself? How is it that you want to talk to yourself? And start talking to yourself like that. And then after that, it's just a practice. And then before you know it, positivity becomes a new way of living for you. Okay, this is not an overnight change, but it is definitely possible. Okay, so I can even say from my experiences, when I was chronically depressed, I would tell myself I am worthless and I don't deserve to live. And that was my subconscious way of thinking until I was like, okay, I need to change up some things. I need to change my self-talk, right? And so many of us are living based on these subconscious beliefs and things that we've just started saying to ourselves, and we don't even know we're living it. So really, you need to get quiet with yourself. And then when I started realizing I was saying that to myself, I started switching that. I started telling myself, I am worthy, I do deserve to live, I am of value, and I am loved. And that became my new way of living, right? And the beautiful thing is that when you just start to practice positivity, it just makes pushing away the negativity so much easier. And it's so much easier to just quickly switch your mindset to one that is more productive for you, all right? So I hope that gave you a little bit of insight as to how you can start working on positivity starting today. And now the last step of this 4-step process is the persistence part, okay? And by persistence, I'm referring to not giving up. This is, again, another really important trait of resiliency and being kind of able to bounce back from adversity. But how do you do it? How do you actually be someone that doesn't give up? 3 ways as to how you do it. You master goal setting, you be patient, and you focus on the process. I think that everybody today should be setting goals, okay? If you don't have goals, then it's like, what are you doing, right? You're kind of just floating around in life. You don't have to have crazy big goals, but just even having a goal like, I don't know, if you're looking for a job right now, maybe your goal is going to be this week, I'm going to network with 5 different people. Or maybe this week, I'm going to hand out 5 different resumes. Or maybe you want to get your diet back on track. So you're going to be like, every single lunch this week, I'm going to be eating salad. Okay. Give yourself some goals so you have a direction to head into. And the most important thing about goal setting is always focusing on the process. I'm a big believer in that there is no such thing as a goal or dream that's too big, but you have to understand that you will have to try multiple ways to get there. But I promise you, if you keep trying and trying and trying and trying and trying, you will eventually get there. And that was me when I was chronically depressed, right? My end goal was to get into a place of having great mental health where I can actually empower other people. And what did I have to do? I had to try one way and another way and another way and another way and another way until I finally got to that place of where I wanted to get to, which is where I am now. And lastly, the most important thing also is just being patient with it all, right? And really just being kind and nice to yourself during the process. As long as you are trying, you are doing great, and understanding that the change you want to implement, the success you want to have, it's going to take time. But if you're patient with it, you will get there. And I think that's the big thing with people today, where we live in this age of instant gratification. But the more that you can step away from that and the more that you can implement patience in your life, and it's tough. I struggle with patience all the time, but I'm working on it. But the more that you can implement it and embrace it, the more that you'll be able to push through challenges and adversity. And I always just love to share this example of J.K. Rowling. Some of you might know her, some of you might not. She is the author of the Harry Potter books. And she got rejected by 13 different publishers before a 14th one said, yes, we will publish your books, right? Imagine if she stopped after the third or fourth one. Harry Potter would have probably been in her basement somewhere right now collecting dust. But instead, she took a step back and she's like, I see the value in my books and my writing, and I am not going to stop until I meet someone who sees the value in my writing and books as much as I see the value in them. And it's because of her persistence that she was able to push through and eventually meet a publishing company who was like, yeah, we like your books, we'll publish them. And look where she is now, right? And think about everything that you could do and achieve if you just chose to focus on that value that you do have, if you chose to be patient, and if you just kept pushing through and pushing through and pushing through, you could literally achieve anything that you put your mind to. Okay? So there you essentially have it. That is the 4-step process on how to be resilient. Again, going back to that phrase of help yourself be positively persistent. Okay? It's up to you now. Decide like what part of these 4 steps that you really need to start focusing on and do the work on, and do that work today. Okay. No one's going to hold your hand and walk you through all these steps. It's something that you need to actively make the choice of doing. Okay. But I promise you, if you start to apply these 4 steps in your life, you will start creating that unbreakable mindset and become that unstoppable being that I hope and dream that all of you can get to and become one day, if you're not already there now. Right. And I just want to end my little PowerPoint presentation just with this quote. This is one of my favorite quotes by Wayne Dyer. If you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And I think this is just so applicable in this COVID pandemic that we have now. And essentially, you choose what COVID means to you, right? You can choose it to mean the most horrible and horrific event in your life, or you can choose it to mean an opportunity to grow, learn new things, or change how you do things. It's definitely not easy. It's not easy at all. I'm with you right there in this, and I struggle with this too. But that's the beauty about it, right? We are all in this together. And let me tell you, there's people out there right now who are taking this and seeing this pandemic as an opportunity, and they're being successful during this time. And my belief is that if they can do it, then we can all do it. Okay? And essentially, you have this one incredible and beautiful life, right? Go out there and do something amazing with it. And the key is to really being unstoppable is to work on yourself right now, right? You are all valuable and you all deserve a great life, no matter what adversity you are currently going through right now. I wish I had the magic wand of just making everyone's pain and adversity disappear during this time, but I can't. But you know what that magic wand is? That magic wand is you working on yourself. That magic wand is you following these 4 steps and getting that help, reaching out for help, working on that positivity and never giving up. Okay? Believe in yourself the way I believe in you and go live that beautiful life that you really deserve. And essentially become that person who works on these steps to build their resiliency and create that unbreakable mindset so that you can become unstoppable and achieve anything and everything that you dream of. And that's it. That's what I have for you guys today. Thank you so much. I hope that these steps were really valuable for you and that you took away some good information. And thank you so much for just having me.
That's great. Thank you so much, Ms. Leen. Thank you, Dr. Panchwani as well. We'll just go over a few questions just that have been collected over. And I think this, I'll just let you choose in terms of the order that you want to answer or whoever wants to go. So the first one is COVID-19 has resulted in increased anxiety, stress, and depression. What are your observations regarding the impact of this at an individual, but even community, national, and international levels. So this is sort of taking whatever you've spoken and then expanding it at the rather larger level. So maybe Dr. Panchwani, if you want to take a stab at this first, and then Bisleen.
Hi. The impact can be measured in human lives, the productivity of a human being affected because of mental illness. There's an economic impact in terms of job absenteeism, even presenteeism, where you are not functioning 100%. You go to work, but you're not functioning 100%. There is a cost for mental illness. There is also, from the national and international point of view, is the same thing. Depression is across nations, across borders. So is other mental illnesses. And we have to focus on mainly prevention and promotion of mental health rather than promoting other things which matter, of course. But mental health is very important to promote through education, through media, social media, and also to prevent mental illness. As we said, follow all the rules and all the tips that I have given and Bisleen has outlined too, which will help to prevent the mental illness. So,
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Panchwani. Bisleen, do you want to add?
There are slides. I think the question, the person who asked the question can go back on the slides later on. You will be publishing it, right?
Yes, we'll send them out.
They can go through the slides. They can stop, look at the slides, understand how to deal with these.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Bisleen, do you want to add anything to that?
Sorry, so the question was asking kind of how this has impacted us like beyond that individual level at like a national, international level?
Correct. Or even the community level, for example. So
yeah, I think, it's definitely made it a lot more difficult for communities to connect and interact with each other for sure. And kind of forced all of us to just get a bit more creative as to how we're really going to reach out and still maintain that connection with our communities despite not being able to interact and see each other a lot. So that's kind of like the biggest thing that I've really seen.
Great, thank you. Yeah, this is these webinars are one of the ways to alleviate that and sort of create community and try and maintain those connections. But again, the artificiality of the medium cannot really make up for the natural and human connections that are formed by coming together.
Ask for help. Don't feel shy. Don't be bound by the chains of stigma. Ask, and there is always help available. And fortunately, mental illness is treatable in every possible way. It only remains for the individual or the family to seek help.
Thank you very much, both of you. The next question is, increased media exposure has added to heightened anxiety. What do you think is a solution to this? And I think this is something that, I don't think there goes a day or even an hour where you're not listening to something about COVID and its impacts and, the number of cases going through the roof, whether it's even here in Peel region or outside. So maybe Dr. Panchwani, you can start on this one.
As I mentioned, information overload can cause stress. So limit your time which you spent on your smartphone with social media, Twitter, etc. You can spend days, hours after hours, like Facebook. or any other WhatsApp, limit your time, screen what is important to you and what is not important to you. There's a lot of information, a lot of junk too, fake news, junk media. So be very careful and look at the sites that are authentic rather than just going by what WhatsApp message says. Especially those messages that have been forwarded several times, they usually are the ones which you have to be careful about. So read important media, the Economic Times, the Guardian, the New York Times, and those media which are balanced and authentic. Of course, there could be flaws in everyone. We are all humans, but you have to choose. That's what my first slide said. God has given you two attributes which are superior to any animal kingdom, any angels, anywhere. Human beings have a very high intelligence and a free will. So choose with your intelligence and follow your choices through your high free willpower. If you make the right choices, you benefit. If you make the wrong choices, you suffer. And remember, mental illness is not a punishment. People think that, oh, God is punishing us. And mental illness is just like any other illness. We have a body and a brain and a mind. So we are subject to, illnesses. What is important is take it as a blessing. Be grateful to what you are having rather than what you don't have. Look at yourself, compare yourself, and how do I improve myself rather than what is my neighbor doing and why is he buying a car and I don't have a car. That makes you depressed. So look at things in a positive light.
Thank you. Bisley, would you like to add to that?
Yeah, I just want to add a little something. I really think that during this time, this is such a big time of uncertainty. And a lot of us think that, if we stay in the loop with the news and things like that, that it'll give us some sort of certainty. And oftentimes it doesn't, because they themselves just as much don't know what's going on as much as all of you don't, right? And instead what they do is they project all the horrible and negative things happening. I'm totally for people wanting to stay in touch with the news a little bit, but when it's getting to be a bit much for you and you're thinking constantly about it, you're constantly checking it out, that's when you need to take a step back, right? There's nothing wrong with the news and social media apps, but it's just how we use them and how much we use them and how much we let them get to us, right? So if you feel like you're in a place right now where it's affecting you negatively, then that's when it's time to just take a step back from it, because it's not really adding any positive value to you.
If I can add an example, you're invited to a wedding and there are about 20 main dishes. There are starters, 10 or 15 starters, and about a dozen desserts. Are you going to fill your plate with each and everything, or you're going to choose sensibly what your body can take and what you can't take, and you're not going to stuff yourself with all the dishes? Same thing is with the media. It's the food for the mind. So you have to be careful what you eat, what you choose.
Great, thank you. And I think given the focus on media, the recent week with the focus on the US elections and the fact that you did not get a result until just yesterday shows that, you just need to take some time. Things will happen slowly. It's not, nobody's running away with this thing. So yeah, thank you. Last quick question. This is on what has been the most challenging mental health issue that you have had to deal with in the healthcare service as a consequence of the pandemic? You showed us some statistics, in terms of suicides and so on. So has there been, particularly this year, and say from March, April onwards, has there been a particular uptick in any of those consequences because of the pandemic. Dr. Panjwani, maybe you can start.
Well, there have been loss of lives of many frontline workers across the world, whether they are physicians or nurses or social workers or a truck driver, a garbage man, or anybody who is doing a frontline job. They are putting their life on wire and risking their lives to serve the community. So we have to appreciate all that. The frontline workers should be appreciated, should be applauded, and should be rewarded. Um, the other challenges are social isolation. Because of social isolation, it doesn't mean you you may be living in the house. Nelson Mandela spent 27 years in a confined jail, a room which was very small, small window, 27 years. Mahatma Gandhi spent several years in prison. They didn't have television, they didn't have smartphones, and yet they were resilient and they were hopeful and they thought positive. So we should take the social isolation one step further by connecting to people on the phone, on Zoom, whatever platform you need to connect. You have to help the vulnerable and the needy. There are elderly in the population who cannot go out and do the grocery shopping. So volunteer to help them out. They will be very grateful and you will be blessed. The other thing is, as we said about information overload, that is causing a lot of issues. And because of uncertainty of the future, uncertainty causes stress. So we have to keep our hopes high that one day, very soon, we will have a vaccine, we will find a treatment. What I also am concerned is that people do not seriously take the guidelines which have been given by governments, health workers, to wear a mask, keep physical distancing at least 2 meters, wash your hands, wash your nostrils, your face, your ears, your eyes, and avoid closed spaces, avoid close contact and crowding. So, with all these guidelines there, yet you will see a lot of people protesting. I don't know, something that is missing there in their perception of things. So, nobody is invincible. COVID can affect a child, an adult, and especially seniors. So one has to be careful. Think about your grandparents, your aged parents. You don't want to bring the infection at home. Think about the community. Think about the economical impact, the negative impact that is happening because we are not being very careful. So if each and every one of us abide by the rules or the guidelines which the health officers, the government, and the various scientists have clearly specified, we will be able to conquer this virus. No big deal. It's virus is just a virus. How do we prevent from spreading the virus? You may be asymptomatic, but others will contract the virus through your talk, through your laughter, and you're not wearing a mask. So please follow the guidelines. That's a big challenge.
Yeah. Thank you, Doctor. Bislin, would you like to add anything to that?
Yeah, just a short, I'm very new to actually practicing and working with patients, but something I have seen during the pandemic come up a lot is anxiety has been a really big issue that's a lot of people are facing with. And again, it goes back down to that piece of just uncertainty and not knowing what's going to happen and when things could change all of a sudden. And really the big thing with that is, as Dr. Panchwani also already touched on, a vaccine will come. There will be an end to this. This is not going to be, for the next 20 years of our lives are going to be like this. No, but maybe the next 1 or 2, yes, but there is an end that's going to come to this. And I think just always having that little reminder at the back of your mind that there will be an end to this. And one day there will be a normal, maybe it'll be a new normal, but there will be an end to it all. And then that's just something so important to just remember, especially during a time of uncertainty. Like, that quote of "this too shall pass." It will all pass. You've been through tough times before. You will have more tough times after this, but just like all tough times, it'll, and then good times come again. So
it's not a cliche when you say we are all together in this pandemic. We are all in this together is not a cliche. It is a fact. Globally, everyone has been affected. Rather than pointing fingers at blaming China or blaming this person or that country, or we have to think positively and work towards it and deal with our own insecurities, our own anxiety, our own stress. And as we have outlined thoroughly through Bislene's talk and through my presentation, there are different ways in which you can positively change and adapt to this change. Adapt to the new normal, accept it, and carry on. Stay calm and carry on.
Great, thank you so much. So the Q&A is concluded with me. I'll now hand it over to our president, Nagendra. Thank you very much.
You're on mute, I think.
Oh, you're on mute.
Yeah, sorry about that. Thank you, Tejas. Namaskara, ellarigu. And thank you for choosing to be with us today instead of spending your Sunday morning on a golf course or some hiking trail because of the unexpected good weather for us in this November 2nd week. I sincerely thank Dr. Dilkush D. Panchwani for an excellent presentation, who explained not only the importance of mental health education, but also how to empower ourselves with good mental health. Sir, your presentation was comprehensive, clear, and really rich in content. We're going to surely share all your presentations with our membership. Bislene Atlee's presentation, I don't know what to say. In one simple word, if I have to say, I should say it was as expected. After going through your Instagram, website, and today's presentation, I should say your energy, enthusiasm is really contagious. We feel really proud of you as a fellow person of Indian origin for all the good things you're doing as a youth activist, as a public speaker on this very important topic. I encouraged our youth committee members today to join this session, not only to learn the importance of mental empowerment, but also to look up to you as a role model. Thank you, Bislene. Since we're on various platforms here, I just wanted to share some of the very good comments we have received as well in various platforms. Like here we say, one of our audience is saying a very lucid and excellent lecture. And the other one said, this is one of the best programs conducted to make a difference in the community. A big thank you. We enjoyed this straightforward and well laid out plan towards resiliency, improving the resiliency. So like that, we have received several such very good comments. And our sincere thanks are due to Mr. Sadananda Mankikar. Mr. Sadanand Mankikar was instrumental in conducting today's webinar. He introduced us to our excellent speakers today and also took part in our preparatory meeting and helped us in the overall coordination. Tumba ಧನ್ಯವಾದಗಳು Sadanand avare. As Dr. Panchwani rightly mentioned, we all have a role in this mental empowerment, whether as a government, individuals, or NGOs. And this webinar is a true example of that. public and private partnership. Government of Canada allocated the budget and appointed the Canadian Red Cross as a nodal agency to distribute the funds to NGOs like ours, Kannada Sangha Toronto. And we, with your help, are conducting this webinar to reach out to our community as well. So this is a great thing that the Government of Canada, Canadian Red Cross, yourselves, every one of us are doing, and a big thank you to all of you. As said earlier, I thank all the, a special shout out to our Chetan Bharadwaj, my colleague on the executive committee and our secretary, for anchoring this whole program from both on the screen as well as more work beyond the scenes. And I'm really very proud to say that today is the first time that of conducting all these webinars, we have figured out to seamlessly stream this on 3 different platforms, Zoom, YouTube, and Facebook, without any external help and all in-house. So a big thank you to Chetan for achieving that feat. I would also like to acknowledge Tejas Ivalli, our Directorate Project Coordinator, and Mala Nandisha, my colleague on the Executive Committee member, for their active contribution for today's event. And of course, I thank all my colleagues in the Executive Committee and fellow Kannadigas who have directly or indirectly helped by spreading this word about our very important webinar on various groups. I think before I conclude, I just want to highlight about the next week events as well. Next week also we have another wellness kind of a program, but that's totally from different perspective. It is from a spiritual perspective. One of a very young spiritual leaders in India, Mr. Dushyant Sridhar, he is going to talk to us on a very important topic and how we can also look at our scriptures and get some guidance and get the guidance and empowerment for these times. And on Sunday, there is a very important and a very good concert, Carnatic music concert by a scholar herself who has done PhD in Carnatic music. So she's not only going to do the concert, but also talk about Kannada in Carnatic music and various forms of Indian music. And as Bislin rightly said, I hope you all will get some time today to step out and enjoy this unlikely good weather. And of course, respecting and maintaining the physical distance. Thank you and have a nice day. And my sincere apologies if I have missed out anyone in thanking anyone. And I finally would like to end this very great webinar with a very good quotation, anonymous quotation I came across, which said, if I can survive the war that I battle within myself, I can survive anything. Thank you. Shubhadina. Have a nice day.
Thank you.